Welcome back to Radical Thursdays. This week I am flying solo and I am missing my dear co host, Bella. But nonetheless, this conversation was incredibly inspirational. I talked with Cindy, the founder of Ella Pocketbook, a sustainable travel accessory brand that helps empower women and women of color. We talked about childhood memories and how they shape who we are today, the importance of staying true to yourself, and how to persevere in today's culture. We hope you enjoy and are able to take as much away from this episode as I did. All right. Thank you again, Cindy, for joining us. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, thank you for having me, Kenya. My name is Cindy Rangel, and I am originally from Chicago. I was born and raised there to my parents, who were both immigrants from Ecuador. And I lived a great life there because I was in the suburbs. What can I say? I mean, I was really lucky, to be honest with you. I would walk to school, I would walk to the library, and I lived in the suburbs, the northwest suburbs of Chicago. So I lived thankfully in a very diverse area close to Skokie, actually Morton Grove. And I went to school with a lot of different people, and I was so grateful I had those experiences because it really shaped what I wanted to do. And it kind of set me forth my mission. And I'm really a big believer that in your early childhood, there are secrets, and your intuition kind of pushes you forward, so to speak, into what you really want to do. And I was really surrounded in a heterogeneous schooling or school population. So I went to school with a lot of kids from the Philippines to the Jewish background to Polish, Croatian. So I was really fortunate to live among different people and see different perspectives. So that was really an awesome time because it made me realize, there's more to just my world. And I was always raised with my parents as immigrants. My mom came to Chicago when she was 17, but there's always more to learn. I was always encouraged to go to the library, and library was very accessible to me. So and then I went to school to U of I, and I really wanted to study abroad. I did the whole study abroad thing, and it kind of set forth the pace of what do I really want to do. I always was encouraged by my family to go to school, to go to higher ed, and keep continuing your studies. So that was a really good part of my background. And yeah, I went to school, studied abroad, and as a child, in my early childhood, I was encouraged also to travel. My parents were huge explorers, and they went to Canada when I was just a baby, and they went to Machu Picchu when I was 9 years old. So I got to experience travel early on in my early childhood, and I was really inspired by the summers in the motherland, which is Ecuador. And I was embraced by my family. They wanted to Ecuador and show me the world. So I was really fortunate to have travel early on, and I'm just really grateful that I got to see the world so early on because I think once you have that experience early on, it just kind of pays dividends. It just pays your memory dividends. It pays your insight into the world. And I really loved being a part of that. And it today, it really sets forth what I want to do. And it really drives my mission in my life, personally and professionally. So I'm really grateful I had those experiences.
Yeah, you're talking about diversity, and that's just something that I know myself for sure, and definitely Bella, kind of wish we had more. We live in a very white rural town, and so I mean everyone's super nice, but there's like you said, you just learn so much when you're around different people who have different beliefs than you, different skin tones, different hobbies, just different lifestyles in general. That's something that, and it definitely like it works all to shape who you are and just a well-rounded view of the world that's definitely needed and I think is missing significantly. Um, but yeah, that sounds like an incredible child.
I
But
really,
we go
yeah,
ahead.
I just, I'm from a, like, I'm not a millennial, so I'm a Generation Xer. And so I was kind of at the cusp of the internet and it just began. And so, but I feel really young. I feel very like vibrant in where I want to be and how, my experience shaped, like you're saying, Kenya, like that perspective of like my Korean classmates, my Greek best friend, all of those, an Irish neighbor down the street, like all of those things kind of shaped and molded you. Like, okay, there's so much to this world, like who am I? What am I doing here? And wow, what a different perspective my friend has and her culture. And it just kind of shapes who you are and shapes your perspective. And I'm really grateful to have kind of had those experiences.
So how did that kind of transform into you starting Ella Pocketbook? Also, where did the name come from? I'm very
Okay,
intrigued.
so yes. So I kind of was looking up names for bags because I didn't want it to be generic. I didn't want it to be so, I wanted it to be like more meaningful because I believe like women are creators of their own destiny. And I know that with your purse, you have valuables. And the most valuable thing you have is your identity and money. And so I really wanted to hone in on that aspect of how we can really tap into who we are, especially as women of color, and see that this little pocketbook or this little purse, which is known as like another word for purse, could really set forth your trajectory of where you want to go. So it's kind of like a symbolism for your vehicle. When you get in the car, you have your valuables. What's in your valuables? So I really wanted to set forth that special word where it's going to like carry you, but you are going to determine where you want to go with those key components of your identity, your relationship with money. And money is huge relationship I've kind of tapped into recently in the last like 5 years. And I really want to hone in on that because it's really a matter of like self-awareness for me. And I really just want to set forth that for women of color, especially because I believe it's like an untapped reservoir and that we really don't see ourselves in most industries. And so I really wanted to hone in on that part of the company name, because it's kind of an old verbiage term for, your valuables. What do I value? I value my identity, where I come from, and then the money aspect. What's my relationship with my money? How do I want to use that money? All of those things come into play when I thought of that too. I just didn't want it to be generic. I wanted to tell the story. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that because especially, I mean, just as women in general, but especially as women of color, I mean, it's just so hard just in life because our whole world. I had this realization a couple weeks ago, maybe like a month or so ago, that like the quote unquote ideal like person is a white male, and I am not white nor male. And so I love how there are people like you who are really empowering women through your company. And I mean, also like you see it all the time with women buying purses, and it's like, why do you spend so much money on purses? It's just like it definitely grows to become your identity. But I love how you took the simple concept of a purse being your identity and then also transforming it into something more meaningful and for it to really become a symbol, because I think that's definitely needed.
Yeah, I really think that women are not encouraged enough to look at that relationship with themselves. especially with women of color. In my experiences, because we're not monolithic idea here, we're kind of all in our own experiences, but what is our relationship with who we are, who we're becoming, and I sought to kind of pursue that idea and know that in travel, in my experience, it's been kind of a game changer for me. It's been part of my entire identity because I've traveled with my immigrant parents so early on, and they were so ambitious with the travel bug. So I experienced that early on, and then I carried it over into my early teens and my later my 20s. And so I just pursued that, and I believe it's kind of like a factor that we have to leverage, so to speak. So if you're going to be traveling, what does it really mean to you? Like, what are you carrying literally? What are you carrying, and what are you going to carry afterwards? So I really wanted to drive that into my my company, and I made it sustainable because that's just who I am. And the sustainability component is just it encompasses like a lot of my personal beliefs, like about the world, and I was going to make a garment, but I just felt like the accessory was really calling me. And so I believe that women should be following their intuition as well when you're traveling too and in on life. So I really followed my passion. Sustainable fashion has been a huge part of my life as well. I did a t-shirt company in Chicago at like the height of the financial fall, and I didn't know what I was doing, and I didn't care because I was following what I was passionate about. And then I did a little other things, and I learned from that company, and just great wealth of knowledge of everything that I learned with that company. I did some real estate, and then I just came back to sustainable fashion because it was calling me. And I think it's important to kind of model that, what is calling you? What's making you passionate and driven? And this company is really driving me to do what I love, and it's helping, me understand who I want to be in this world. And so I made it sustainable because it only made sense, and that's my history. So that's a little bit about how I came about to it.
Yeah, so we haven't had anyone about sustainable fashion yet. So um how is it just making sustainable fashion that's also affordable?
Mhm.
Because I feel like there's a lot of um preconceived notions that if it's going to be sustainable, it's going to be expensive.
Mhm.
Um, is that true? I don't really know if that's true, but how is it
Yeah.
dealing with it kind of in today's world where everything is so fast fashion and just
Mhm.
like the faster the better, the cheaper the better?
Yeah, so that's a really good question because in our society, especially in the United States, where fast fashion is like the main denominator in manufacturing and the clothing and retail sector. So, um, because wages have been stagnant in general for the workforce, prices may seem to be out of reach for the past 10 years. And it can be expensive, like considering the luxurious market and the luxurious retail sector. However, fast fashion is notorious for really price gouging because they want their margins big. But where do they price gouge? They price gouge in the labor part. And that's what's really dangerous in my opinion. I consider myself a feminist. I've always considered myself a feminist. I come from a family of one of four daughters, so all I know is I'm going to be outspoken. When I think of that, I think that 80% of the global fashion labor force is women of color. That's huge to me. And if I think I'm going to start something in the fashion industry, I only can consider that as the major driving force. And not only that, like, what is their lifestyle and how does it impact me? You know, like if they are being, unfortunately, they are being price gouged right now in these pandemic times. What 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 sectors were impacted? Across the board, all sectors were impacted, but travel was hugely halted. And then the manufacturing sector was completely devastated. Most of these manufacturers had to stop a lot of the the pricing and the clothing prospects that they had to stop it. And so many of the laborers did not get paid, unfortunately. And so who wins, who loses, it becomes kind of like tooth and nail. And I don't like that. It's like not part of who I am. And so not to be like in this savior notion, but I believe that there's a better way, and that fast fashion has been notorious for price gouging, has been notorious. And the pandemic kind of just aggravated it even more. So my mission is to kind of re-image what that's going to look like. And even though there might be like a significant price hike in some bags and the pricing retail world, I believe that it really is about like what the consumer wants. And according to what the consumer wants lately, they want sustainable fashion. They do. And it's the millennials and the younger generation that really want that. And they're paying for it. So pricing can be relatively seen as you see the luxury market, and then you see like a little bit lower in pricing. But if you're looking at $9.99 dress on any fast fashion retailer, it's like, or a purse, it's like, where is the cut going really? And how long is this piece of clothing or accessory really going to last? And just looking at the whole overall life cycle of that product. So it's coming into itself. I've seen sustainable fashion go beyond just a trend. And so I'm very excited to be in this industry right now, because I believe a lot of the big manufacturing and companies, the corporations, are really starting to set the wheels in their mission. So I'm hoping that there will be more significant change.
Yeah, that's definitely one thing that I like about my generation. So I'm Gen Z, like the older Gen Z. But we are definitely, I mean, with it's all relative, but we are in this time, I would say the most progressive. I mean, that's just how time works. But yeah, the sustainability has been really coming across, and also just the equality just in general. And so I love how you think about not only the people who are buying your product, but also representing the people who would be making your product. And you're thinking about just like the whole factors, all of them, instead of just the money, which has been common and happens far too often. And so I think that now we're starting to move into a more equitable space among consumers and among fashion, just among just life in general. I mean, there's still, of course, a long ways to go with a couple of things, but we're definitely going in the right direction for sure.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see that the consumers and the younger generations are really starting to really voice what matters to them, because yes, money isn't the main force driving it, but it is a factor at the end of the day, because everyone is paying for it. And like you said, there are higher price points for different types of models, so to speak. If you're talking about a fair fashion or a different model in terms of like a global product, there are going to be different price points for that too. But yeah, I really believe that lots of people or women of color are kind of coming into front and center of what they really want. they're highly educated, and they're looking for a change. And it's very refreshing to see that, because I'm seeing like a shift towards that with a company like Levi's or Patagonia, which has historically been on that mission for quite a long time, but they're setting the wheels even more. But we do have to be mindful of any greenwashing. And yeah, I'm just really excited to be part of that, and the transparency of it all, because at the end of the day, we do want to be transparent to the consumer. We do want to tell the story. I'm a big storyteller. I'm very privileged to be a listener, and I want to tell the story of how I'm making the product. And so it's very important that my consumer be aware of it, because at the end of the day, my consumer is the most important person.
So, can you go a little bit into like how did you start Ella Pocketbook? Like how was it getting it started and building it
Sure.
up to be what it is today?
So I started researching it quite a while. I moved from Chicago to San Diego about 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago. And I started doing this research, and I know I wanted to do a travel bag, and I got somewhat lost in the sourcing, and I maybe wasn't the right timing of it all, because I did move to San Diego, was looking for a job, but I knew I wanted it to be sustainable, and I knew the travel was going to be a big part of it. At first it was under a different name. It was a blog, and I really wanted it to tell the story of my story, and really seek out like different sources in terms of the fabric, because I knew that, sourcing the fabric is a huge part of it, deciding what it was going to be. At first it was going to be cork. Then I didn't want it to be cork. Then I went abroad and I went to Oaxaca. I was doing some investigations there in terms of my some embroidery that I wanted to pursue. And then the pandemic hit, and I was like, everything kind of halted like for at least 5 months. I was like, but then I decided, like, I don't really care anymore. I'm just going to move forward. And so I just stuck to my guns. Like, everything was kind of like shutting down. And I was like, but I really need to do this. And so I revamped the, the identity of the brand, the branding, so to speak. And then I worked with a lot of the people that I'm working with, like the marketing and the branding, are women of color. And that's who I really want to like focus on. I want it to be like really focused. Obviously, women of color are part of the garment industry, but I want it to be throughout the whole supply chain, women of color. My pattern maker, who is working prototype right now, is a woman. So she specializes in handbags. And so I'm really grateful I was able to reach out to her, and she's within the United States, because originally I thought it was going to be sourced with fabric from Mexico, but then I found some canvas type, and I'm looking at that again still. And so we're getting the prototype back, and we're going to test it on a couple of my friends and consumers that I've reached out to and to survey. And I don't have an entrepreneurial like background, so to speak, but I do have a passion and drive for this. So it's kind of built in my DNA. Like, I will say my mom is a bookkeeper, so I think that has a little bit to do with it. Kind of funny that it has the book name. But I think that when you tap into your intuition and you tap into what you're really passionate about, no matter what's going on in the world, I think you have to just keep on going. And that's like the biggest lesson I think that I've learned throughout this whole process. And I really don't care how long it takes. It's like, of course, like, I have some things invested in this. I do have timelines, but I really respect the process and I'm really passionate about it. So yeah, one step at a time. And that's a little bit about that process of the beginning.
Yeah, I love that. I am a very very big believer in just the law of attraction and like manifestation and everything. Um, and I love how you said you just as long as you have the passion, because you can change. And I mean, it's kind of like the idea of how I don't remember where I saw this, but they compared like the outcomes of a group who like did something purely based on experience and a group who like studied for years on years. And I think once you have experience and the passion behind it, you're always going to end up creating something better and long lasting compared to someone who just studies about it and doesn't really care that much about it.
Mm.
Because you need the heart in order to keep going, especially in times like these where things get really, really difficult. You need it to continue pushing through. And I also kind of touched on it earlier about how all of your employees are, or all the people that you're collaborating with are all women, or yeah, are all women. Are they all women of color?
Mostly, yeah, like my
Okay.
marketing, my branding. I kind of set forth that that was who I wanted to work with. Like that's who I work with in general. Like that's who my comfort level is.
Mm-hmm.
And I am like, that's what's going to be working for me.
Yeah, I love that because I feel like a lot of times, again, like they don't really think about the people that they're working with and the collaborators, people who start something, and they definitely devalue them for sure, for sure. And we were talking about Jeff Bezos at dinner a couple nights ago, and how, mind you, I'm not saying he's a very smart person to create Amazon, genius, like, but I said at the end of the day, like the people who are actually making the products are making nothing, and he's getting all the credit. And so I think it's so important to spread out not the power but the recognition for what's being made and to actually appreciate it. And then when you appreciate the work that is actually being put into it, you're able to appreciate the product even more so.
Yeah, and it doesn't like you when you buy something, you're going to buy it for how long it's going to last you too. You know, a lot of people in the luxury fashion sector, they pay for something because they want a that feature or that longevity of that product, and then and they love the brand as well. But also, it's like, how long is it going to last you? Unfortunately, a lot of the products that are made are not made to last, and that's the issue in the fashion industry. And it's not working. It's antiquated. The people are not happy, and there's going to be issues at the end of the day because those models are not going to be lasting. I mean, Levi's is currently doing something about it, and they've been around for a really long time. Gucci as well. I mean, these are people with a deep pockets who are investing and have research money like crazy. So it's not a trend. It's what makes sense even on the bottom line, as they like to say it. Because I have a bottom line too. You know, I'm not shy about talking about money either. And like I said in the beginning, money is really a huge, important relation to have. And as women of color, it's even greater because our value is not placed forth in the media. We're not paid equally. So money has been a huge, huge game changer for me. I've made my mistakes, I've learned, I've had my setbacks, and I've been in the position where I'm fortunate to be, you know. And even though my expertise is not in entrepreneurship or fashion, it is my set skill. You know, I love marketing, I love business, and I love sustainable fashion. My expertise is in education. Like that's where my training is from. But, you know, I have ethics and I believe in fair labor law. And we have to move forward with the future, you know, considering the future. And the systems that are in fashion are deeply antiquated and don't fit women of color at all.
Yeah, I mean, everything you're saying, I'm just like, oh my gosh, I agree.
Mhm.
Especially because looking towards the future. So I'm an education major as well. And looking for the future, like one of my biggest goals is to open a school, like an art school for children with special needs. And so you're saying all this stuff and just like I'm thinking like down the future, and I'm like, oh my goodness, like this would be just a great mindset to have going into this, especially as a female of color. Like it's already going to be hard. Plus, like it's going to be hard trying to start my own business, and then also in education, because a lot of the comments I see whenever anyone like asks me what I'm doing, like what I'm studying, I'm like, oh, early childhood special ed. They're like, oh, all you do is color all day. Like, no, I don't. I actually
Oh
do.
my
Like, I
God.
study. I still do my studies, and I have to study all fields because I have to teach them. Um, but yeah, it's definitely going to be hard. But what you're saying is honestly inspiring me, and I'm just thinking towards the future down the line, which I love.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I think that, like I said, it goes back to my early childhood, like, and what you say is so important. Like, there's so many misconceptions. Like, special ed teachers are highly trained, like, specialized, like and people don't know that, and so they have these huge misconceptions, and it's mind-boggling to me because we are in an industry that is directly impacting the future, and so we are at like the forefront of what's going to be like the future. And so I think it's really important to kind of have that mindset. Okay, so if I am the role model, how am I embodying my message? What do I want to set forth in my mission, my personal mission, whether it's in teaching or whether it's in sustainable fashion? It's still a mission that's personal. So I feel like that's really important, to speak to in terms like as a woman of color, because I don't see myself emulated in that. There's very few people like me. I've reached out to a couple of friends and and all I want to do is collaborate. It's like all I want to do is move forth with the mission.
Yeah, that's so important. And that reminds me of also again today I was talking to my mom, and my brother is like applying to be a substitute teacher. And he's just so naturally good with kids. It's ridiculous. Like he's just one of those people. Um, and I was talking to her about how I'm glad that he's applying for the position, not necessarily for him, but for the lives that like the students that he's going to impact. And that's just so important. And like finding those people who believe you and who are able to see what you're able to do, even if you can't see it yourself, having those people around you to motivate you and to kind of push you in the right direction. And even if it doesn't end up working out, I mean, you still learn so much about yourself along the way that you can therefore apply to what you're going to do in the future.
Of course, almost definitely. Like everything that I have perfected in education, all the work that I've done for, over the 10 years that I've been in this industry, it's like I've carried it over into the business. It's like, this is not a waste. This is not lost time. Every single thing is preparing you for the next moment, I believe. So, dealing with all of the workload that comes with teaching is just like when you step into entrepreneurship, it's kind of another level, but it's like very similar, very similar. The discipline and the commitment it takes as a teacher, those are the skills, that skills that kind of have been a great foundation in my entrepreneurial journey. And I'm just really grateful that I'm in this position. And I'm really excited to kind of bring forth this mission and my product to the market.
Yeah, so and for our listeners, you can tell that Bella isn't here, and so Bella typically does the Food Incorporation. So I would like to ask you if you have anything thinking just that kind of incorporates what you do into food, and maybe like with sustainability or anything like that.
Yeah. So, like, when I traveled, a lot of the experiences I had is food. Like, the earliest experiences, I'll tell you a story about my aunt. She is my mother's oldest sister, and she was an accountant. But she had 5 children and she managed to do everything. Like, she was just magic. And she was this tiny petite woman who made the best soups. And all my cousins were like in their 20s and 30s, and they're like, do you remember Tia Laurita's soups? And they're like historic, and it's like amazing. Like, the food sets forth the memory in your brain and just takes you all the way back home. And you can talk about it with your family. I could talk about it with my mother, and we laugh about it. And also, like, when you talk about food, it's the great equalizer. Travel and food, I believe. And I believe I'll do like a talk about this somewhere. But food is just like, when you go to any country, you're their guest. And outside of the United States, I've seen this in my experience, where the food is just like the introduction to the culture, and it just envelops you, and it embraces, oh, this is us culture. Be a part of it, become it. It's kind of, that's what my experience has been. And then I see other people's food and their culture, and I start seeing connections. And then I get excited. I'm like, I'm no chef, but I'll be the taste tester every day. But yeah, I mean, the food has been, I mean, it will neutralize everything. And who doesn't love a taco?
honestly. Yeah, we talk a lot about that in so we're primarily we focus on food justice and food sovereignty, and food just like producing healthier food, producing food that is equal for everyone, no matter your income, no matter your race, no matter your religion, et cetera, et cetera. And just kind of everything about that. And a lot, like, it's just so crazy to me every time, like, I think about it, but I'm like, but it's so crazy how food really intersects with every part of your life. And has such a power to bring people together. And I mean, a lot of think about like, a lot of important conversations happen over the dinner table. And like, it's just so strange to me that like food is what brings everyone together and can provide inspiration to so many people. I used to want to be a food photographer when I was younger. That was cool. Like my thing. And I get memories on my phone, and every single one is just food. It's the weirdest thing. They're not good quality, but yeah, I don't know what it was, but just from an early age, it's just, I don't know, like, kind of food is able to it has this crazy way of transforming beyond just what you're eating and what you're nourishing your body with, but genuinely nourishing your soul. That's also the title of our organization. But it's, yeah, food is something incredible. And I feel like a lot of time it gets overlooked. And especially in America, it's definitely abused for sure. A lot of times it's seen as either like, it can be used as a power over someone, or at the same time, it can also completely be used in the opposite way. Yeah, I don't really know where I was going.
I understand what you mean. Like, I believe that the food systems in the United States are a little bit predatory, so to speak. Yeah. So like, one of the pillars of my company is health and wellness, because, considering the times that we're living in, a part of my bag will be a compartment dedicated to your health and wellness.
I love that.
So, and I think of health and wellness, I think of it overall as an umbrella. Like, you have your nutrition, you have your mental health, you have your physical health. And food, I'm very passionate about in terms of nutrition, because, again, my mom, she was a stay-at-home mom, and she showed me that, her culture and the nutritious foods that she made at home were the most nutritious and healthy food for my family. And that even though there was, like, fast food again, my peers would consume that, or some of the food that was like easier to consume as a kid. I didn't have those options. And I just had an apple and a sandwich.
Yeah, me too. Me
Which is
too.
just like a basic thing, like I didn't have the McDonald's, or I didn't have the chips. It was pretty like boring, but it was paper bag sandwich. It's supposed to be boring, but you're a kid and that sticks with you.
Mm-hmm,
You see
mm-hmm.
your lunch different or whatever. But then I come home, as an adult, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I had those experiences of my lentil soup. We eat a lot of lentils and beans and rice in Ecuador and South America. And now I've just carried it over into my life with my son. And I'm just like, this is just like a privilege, this habit of wellness, this habit of home, and the recipes my ancestors and my aunt, going back to my
Yeah.
she's like so famous in her family for her soup. So I'm really just grateful I can do that, and allow it to nourish me.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So many
Yeah.
ways,
I love that. Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. Like, my mom is very, very health conscious in general. And all the time we were like, "Ah, Mom, why can't we just go to McDonald's?"
Yeah.
And I appreciate it, one, just because, I mean, obviously it's healthier for you, like just eating at home, but also just, again, the appreciation. And it definitely takes your focus off of kind of just like the go, go, go lifestyle that we live in. And you're able to really sit down for a second and to appreciate what you have, and beyond just, I mean, obviously be thankful for the food that you're able to eat, but beyond that, just be appreciative of everything in life and like the people who prepared it for you, and just all of that. Yeah.
Yeah. And just a little caveat, I'm not perfect. I'm obviously, I eat sometimes out of stress, and that's okay with me because I'm not perfect. But I always try to default, and I say this good because in the times that are so challenging, my default is health and wellness. Like, I always try to put it front and center. What am I doing for myself that's going to bring me longevity and wellness right now? And like sometimes I'm like, oh my God, we're still in this pandemic. Wah, wah.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, okay, what am I going to eat that's going to nourish me and give me energy and take me to my next step or my next chapter?
So good. This is definitely a shorter episode because I don't have my sidekick here to ask all the questions.
That's okay.
But before we get to the inspirational quote, I found one on my phone that also fell. Do you have just any final words, any inspirational words or anything like that?
I think that it's important for women of color to follow their intuition, to listen to it, because along your journey, there are little pushes, nudges, secrets, whispers that says, this is the direction. Go forth, live it, embody it. Who cares if it's scary? Just do it. Who cares if you fail? Nothing is going to happen, so to speak. The worst thing that can happen is that you gain this notion of failure that can really set you forth with a wealth of knowledge.
So good. Yeah, and kind of going off of that. There's a whole page of quotes. I'm just kind of like reading them. But the one that I saw first I really liked was by J.K. Rowling, and it says, "We do not need magic to transform our world. We carry all the power we need inside ourselves already. We have the power to imagine better." And I like this quote just because, especially again, like in today's world, it's going to be so hard to find um, external support a lot of the times. I mean, now we're getting definitely much better at that. But it's going to take some time to find it. And while you're on your way to find it, there's also, even though you still have it, there's still going to be so many more people that are doubting you and everything in life and everything you do and everything you stand for. And so it's so important that if you really want to change anything, you really need to look inside yourself and to truly just believe you. And I know for me personally, I am like the hardest headed person I know. Like my friends cannot convince me to do anything. Like it's really bad. But at the same time, so sometimes I wish I was definitely more lenient, but at the same time, I'm very set in my morals. And so I'm definitely thankful for that, because I know that whatever I'm doing, I'm going to, like, I know it's going to be right for me and for my life. And all the time I say to myself, I'm going to be the one living with my decision. And so if I make a decision that upsets anyone, I mean, sure, they might be upset if I lose a friend. Okay. But at the end of the day, I'm still the one that's living with that decision. And so I'd rather make a decision that I'm happy with, that might not negatively impact someone, but might create some strain between our relationship. If, as long as I'm happy at the end of the day, then that's kind of all that matters.
That's so insightful. That's such a good way of thinking about it too. I'm glad I can learn from you as well, Kenya. That's so great. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. This was such a wholesome conversation. I loved this. Feel free to shout out anything, everything. Go ahead.
Okay. To find me, you can find me mostly on Instagram at Ella Pocketbook. Please don't hesitate to connect with me, send me a DM, or just follow me and my story. There's so much more to my story, and I invite you to ask questions, be curious, and let's collaborate. Thank you so much.
Love that. Thank you so much for coming on. Yeah, we really appreciate it. And I know our listeners will definitely gain some insight from it.
Thank you so much.
Let me stop recording.
So you can find us if you want to follow us or continue listening or donate to us on our website at www.nourishmysoul.org. You can find us on Facebook and YouTube. Just search up Nourish My Soul. That's where our podcast will be alongside Alicia's podcast. She has a couple of different ones for the days of the week. So like Mindful Mondays. That may be actually a way you can indirectly get her as a mentor. You can find us on our Instagram accounts. You can find Nourish My Soul at nourish.my.soul. And you can find From the Ground Up, which is our teen group, at From, without the O, Ground Up. You can email Alicia even, surprise, surprise, at alicia@nourishmysoul.org. And Alicia is spelled Alicia. And finally, you can listen to us wherever you get your podcasts. To name a few would be Spotify, Google Podcasts, Anchor, Breaker, Pocket Cast, and Radio Public. Peace out, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, non-binary Scouts, all Scouts,